And we're live. Welcome to another binge-worthy webinar. My name is Joy Apple. I am the Joy of SharePoint. I have with me Richard Calderon, and we are here today to talk to you about what is possible with the mobile applications inside of Microsoft 365. I hope you're ready because this is going to be super cool. It's so cool. I broke out my Bridge of the Starship Enterprise for it because it's just space age awesomeness. If this is your first time joining, welcome. We are so very glad and thankful for you for coming in and spending time with us today. Um, I am with Pate Group. I've been with Pate Group for about 4 years now, but I've been inside of the Microsoft products and technologies for almost 12 whole years. Started out as a farm admin and just kind of worked my way into where I am today. My current role is modern workplace strategist. So I help people figure out how to get from where they are right now in maybe a file share or old SharePoint and bring them into the modern offerings of Microsoft 365. It's the most fun job in the world. And again, like I said, I have with me Richard. He's my work twin. Richard, how are you today?
Doing pretty well, thanks. So good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, as Joy mentioned, have been doing this for quite a long time as well too. The whole working in the Microsoft space, which is really one of the great things about working with Microsoft technologies, is it's continually changing. It's super interesting, and you can really hang your hat on a career in working just specifically in the Microsoft technology space. So, been doing this for quite some time as well. Also a modern workplace strategist at Pate, just like Joy. And why we love to do what we do is part of why we wanted to bring this series of webinars to you here, focusing primarily on teams. I think this is episode 9. Is that right? Of what we've done so far, Stacy? Yeah, can you believe it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, this is sort of like season 1, if you will. And we wanted to bring you this bonus episode today, focusing on mobile and mobile applications, I should say, specifically centered around Microsoft Teams. But then we're going to look at a broader set of services that Teams brings together in the mobile experience as well. So we're going to start off just with a few poll questions. Again, we like to do this because this helps us get a little bit better understanding about who you are, some of your experiences in working with some of the Microsoft mobile apps. So if you would be so kind, you can actually engage in the poll in a couple of ways. There's a link in the Q&A panel. You can just click that link. It'll take you straight to this poll. Also, if you happen to have your handy mobile device on you today, which is coincidentally the topic of today's webinar, you could also just whip out the camera and scan that QR code right there directly on the screen. It'll crack open a web browser to let you respond to the polls as well. So a couple of questions, the standard one, who's in the audience today, but we wanted to know which, if any, of the Microsoft mobile apps are you currently using? So I've kind of got a whole list of them there. If you're not really using any of the mobile apps as well, feel free to check that box and let us know. But then for those of you that are, we want to know which of them might you consider to be your favorite, or which ones do you use the most often? And just for the purposes of this poll question, we just made it a single selection. So let us know which of these are the ones you use most often. And then we also were just interested to know, how often do you use these Microsoft mobile apps to stay productive, to stay on top of work? Do you use them every day, maybe every so often, not really very often? Or do you just never fire them up? You're really only firing up Facebook and news apps and things like that on your mobile device. So I'm going to flip over here to responses at this point and try to see what kind of responses we might be getting. Let's get a little refresh action going on that form. So I've got a few responses coming in at this point now. Again, I know some of you are probably just working your way through this single Microsoft form. And I'll go ahead and throw the QR code back up here again for any of you that have your mobile device on you. So got a good number of people, again, profiled as IT pros, welcome. A person from the business, someone from management level. And then in terms of apps, yep, I mean, Outlook is certainly, that's kind of the one, right, that most people tend to think about on putting their mobile device. But I have a few folks that are using Teams. Hopefully that some of you have seen that there's a new combined Office app now that combines all the Office tools into one. And so if you're still using the kind of the legacy Word, Excel, PowerPoint apps, you can delete those now and just install the single Office app. So we've got a few.
I would say it really works. I was hesitant and I didn't delete all those random Word, PowerPoint, whatever apps because I didn't believe it would work. It works and it's beautiful.
I agree. It's a super, super cool app, and the Microsoft mobile team for Office did a really good job on that. So, okay, and then, often, again, let's see if we can just get a refresh on this page and see if we've got a little bit more responses coming in at this point. Again, feel free to jump into this poll and respond at any point along the webinar. We're always interested just to get an understanding from those that are attending of some of these types of responses from you. So again, sounds good. Thanks for responding to the poll. We don't really have a whole lot of presentational material here today, really, for the most part, because we wanted to spend the lion's share of the webinar in actually showcasing and demonstrating a lot of these capabilities. So just the single slide that we really have here around the mobile apps is, if you haven't had a chance to get some of these downloaded, you certainly can go and learn more about them on the Microsoft.com website. But again, depending on whether you use an iOS device or an Android device, you can go to the requisite App Store or Google Play Store and go download any of those apps and just have them on your device ready to go. Again, today we're going to focus primarily in Microsoft Teams, the mobile app. But the good news is, as you guys have known from using Teams and attending some of our previous webinars, that Teams is the hub for teamwork in Microsoft 365. It pulls together a number of different experiences across the Microsoft 365 platform to really make that a very seamless experience. So there's some nuances, differences between the way it works in mobile, and some differences in just what's possible in mobile versus Teams on the desktop. But again, wanted to showcase most of that here to you today. So I'm actually going to conserve a little bandwidth for myself here at home, shut off my video, and just kind of go dark on you here for a moment, and then going to go ahead and flip over to getting the mobile app running. So let me do a little bit of a mirroring here and then get that up and running for you. Okay, one too far. Okay, so I run an iOS device, an Apple phone, or an Apple device, iOS, and it is, a similar paradigm from here to Android. But for those of you that are also using an Android device, just know that all of these Microsoft apps are also equally available on Android as they are on iOS. Some of the things that I'll show you here that are specific to the way it works on an iPhone might be unique to the way it works on iPhone. So again, I apologize for that, but again, very much the same experience when you're working with it in an Android device as well. But I've got, kind of like everybody, you personalize the screens on your iPhone. I've got a whole ton of apps here, probably more apps than I really should have, quite frankly. But I have on this second screen here what I tend to just refer to as my work screen. As you can see, it's by and large loaded up with a number of Microsoft apps, a few other apps that we use specifically at Pate to kind of get our work done day-to-day basis, but by and large, the majority of them are Microsoft apps. And even in the iOS paradigm, we're at the very bottom of the screen where you can pin some apps that stay persistent even when you swipe from left to right. I've changed some of those to be ones that are specific to what I need to see every day on a day-to-day basis. Have iMessage, because that's just how my wife gets in touch with me, and so I need to have that kind of front and center all the time. But then I also have Outlook, and yes, I do have 105 unread messages, it seems, at the moment. I have to go and clean that up. But then I've got next to that Teams, and then I've got another app, Microsoft app called To Do. If you haven't seen that app, would highly encourage you to go and download that app from a personal task management perspective. But then again, right here on the screen, got a whole series of other Microsoft apps. So we're going to focus on Teams. We're also going to see how Teams can hand off and kind of pivot over to a set of these other applications relatively seamlessly when you're inside of your kind of day-to-day workflow. So I'm going to go ahead and load the Teams app here. I'm kind of partial to the dark theme. You may have this set kind of as the standard light theme, but I kind of like the way that the dark theme looks, at least it is for my eyesight. But again, for those of you that are familiar with Teams, really, by and large, the majority of the different types of common apps that you need to navigate back and forth, which are listed here on the very bottom here. So again, you've heard Joy and I talk a number of times of the left rail or the left navigation. In the mobile paradigm here, it's really the bottom navigation to be able to get back and forth between your activity feed, chat, going in and out of various teams, to see your calendar, to be able to use Teams for calling. And then whether you knew you could do this or not, you can also kind of swipe up from the bottom here. There's a little bar just right above the apps where you can swipe up and you can see another set of apps. Again, some that are very specific to mobile, such as the camera, for example, that you can get access to, but you can get to files. You can get to see across the organization. So again, I'm logged in as this demo user, Megan Bowen, in this case here, but you can get to organization. Another set of other types of really useful apps that are pinned down here. For that matter, if you really wanted to edit the order of them in your mobile app, you could go into edit and then just kind of drag these guys around. So let's say maybe I use files more frequently than I use calls. You notice that it can only really support 5 of them across the bottom of this navigation rail at any point, but you could do so and then you could customize it to your liking in that case. Okay, so now I have files accessible to me here as opposed to phone or something like that. But in this case, maybe I'm just going to kind of keep it the standard setup. Okay, so a couple things that I think are worth mentioning here is, your mobile device is going to, for the most part, respect the way that you've set up certain configuration settings on your Teams desktop app as well. But there are a couple that stand out that are specific to mobile, and I wanted to point them out to you. So again, here, this in the mobile paradigm, you've got this little hamburger menu up here in the top left corner. And so when you click on that hamburger menu, it pops out this side menu that gives you some of the, again, the same types of things that you can set on the desktop app, such as I can change my availability. I can say I'm busy, or, do not disturb me right now, which is going to shut off notifications and so forth until I'm ready again. But I can change that. I can change my presence indication. Just like on the desktop app, I can change and set a status message here. This is really useful, I feel like. I'm not sure if this is something that we really highlighted much in some of our previous webinars, but the ability to say, I'm out the rest of the day or something like that, the remainder of the afternoon of this afternoon, and then to be able to toggle the ability to show that when people try to message you. Notice, by the way, I neglected to mention, in this status message, you have a total of only 280 characters that you can enter. I don't believe that's inclusive of spaces, so if I keep spacing here, it doesn't actually count towards those 280, but just know that it's a limit of 280 you can set. You can say show when people message me, and then you can say clear it after. So I love this because you can just say, I'm only going to be out for the afternoon. Maybe that's the remainder of another 4 hours or so. And so I set it to 4 hours. After that 4-hour time from the time that I've set it, it just resets it back so that this particular message is no longer here. So I think that's really useful. But you've got notifications. Now, here's one of the things that's actually fairly unique to the mobile. You have the ability to say here, I want to set quiet hours. So quiet hours in this case is, basically what I want to say is I've got my mobile device with me pretty much all the time. I've got it in my pocket, and I want to set it to where, from 8 p.m. or maybe, earlier if that's your work style, from like 6 p.m. or something like that, to at least 5 a.m. or even 6 a.m. I want to set this to be where nobody really can disturb me, if you will, with notifications that are coming through Teams. So I can set that as quiet hours, and I can even set quiet days. So, let's say for the most part, Sunday and Saturday is what we all consider to be our weekend days. So you can set Sunday and Saturday, or maybe you got sort of different shifts that you work for your particular role and responsibility. So you can set different days. But being able to set quiet hours and quiet days, I think that's a really useful utility here on the mobile device, because again, you can prevent those notifications and so forth from popping up 24/7, which can certainly prevent you from being able to get that needed downtime. So quiet hours is something that I would encourage you to look at inside of the mobile device settings. Also, this one here around receiving notifications, you can either say, on my mobile device, only set notifications when I'm not really on my desktop or I'm really on the web. Or you can just say always. I tend to say always. Curious to know, Joy, do you even bother setting these quiet hours or any of these types of things for you and teams on the mobile at the moment?
So I have to be brutally honest because, under work from home restrictions that we're on right now, my husband is home and he can hear me.
Yeah.
So I am not as good as I should be about quiet hours.
Yeah.
I do have Sunday scheduled for quiet hours, and I think in the evenings I've got teams set for me to stop getting notifications at about 8 p.m.
Oh, good. Good.
So I'm working on it. I'm trying really hard.
Yeah.
But I would say the most important one of these settings for me, and you've got yours, I see set the same way for Megan here, is receive notifications always.
Yeah.
Not so. I think the default, if I remember correctly, is only when inactive on desktop or web. But I dual wield, right? I want to be able to get my notifications on my phone and my desktop all at the same time because I'm using both at the same time.
Yeah.
So I realized I was missing out of a lot of mobile notifications because I did not have it set to always.
Yeah, I'm the same way. And I'm also trying to work harder now with all the work from home thing to set some quiet hours. But quite frankly, on my mobile app, I oftentimes just turn this thing off because, we've got folks across our team that are working at various hours of the day. And sometimes they just need to be able to weigh in and get some very short response from you. And they just need to know something that'll take you literally 10 seconds to type. So, so in that case, I might just turn this off so that those folks can get in touch with me. And, I've got my mobile device, I can answer pretty quickly. But
Same.
So notifications, here, there's a whole ton of them you can toggle on and off. This is a personal thing, but I would encourage you to come in here and experiment around with these a little bit. Turn some of these off if you just feel like too many different types of pop-ups and notifications is just not suitable for you. And then similar down here, you've got some things around meetings. I think this is useful here. You can turn on meetings to say, I want to get notified when any and all meetings start. Or maybe it's just the ones that I've accepted to. So the ones that I've said I'm tentative, or clearly if I've declined a meeting, it's not even going to be on my calendar anymore. But you can choose whether or not to show meetings to start or stop. So there's a whole ton of notification settings that you can set here in the menu. But then lastly, some other things I mentioned before, you can set what theme you want to have and so forth. This notifications here, coincidentally, is the exact same notifications as if you just went straight to notifications here in the menu. So it's the exact same setting, kind of get there two different ways. But the other thing I find useful here is under messaging. Again, this is not necessarily unique to mobile, but the ability to turn on and off read receipts here, I think that's also something that is important for you as an individual to decide, does this suit you or not? And what that means is it gives you the ability inside of private chat or group-based chat to see whether or not someone else has actually read the message. Both people, in the case of a one-on-one chat, both people have to have this turned on for it to work really kind of both ways. But again, just decide for yourself whether this is something you do or don't want to have. And then the show channels option here is just something that says for the chat app on the mobile device, if you want to show some of the channels that you are frequently using, those would also show up top above chat as well too. I don't tend to find that as useful for me. I'm not about you, Joy.
Nope.
I don't turn that on. Yeah, I don't turn that on specifically, but
It's
okay.
much.
So yeah, so enough about all the kind of the boring setup stuff. Let's get into some of the application itself. So when you're in the application, your activity feed is your best friend by all means. You have the ability up top here, just like you do inside of Teams, the desktop app, to switch from the feed to just my activity. So again, this is my activity that I've actually posted or have had somebody who've actually responded back and forth to me. So I've got a couple of different ways I can filter the activity feed here. I can also use the filter option up here in the top right to filter my activity feed by some way things that are useful. Maybe I just want to see anything that's unread in this case. So it's as trivial as that. Or maybe I just want to say, where somebody mentioned me and so forth. So there's a number of different ways that I can filter the activity feed on the mobile device to make it really useful for me to be able to get back and forth. And again, just like you would expect, when you click on anything in the activity feed, it just takes you directly to where that particular activity occurred. So again, really, really handy and useful. Chat, again, works pretty much like you would expect it to work. I think by and large, the thing that I try to encourage most organizations to think about when it comes to chat on the mobile device, and you can see that Lydia here, who is actually Joy behind the scenes for our little demonstration here, she just messaged to me. If you do that again, Joy/Lydia, you'll see that in fact, there's just like on the desktop app again, you're going to see here that there's the indicator that is in fact showing that somebody is typing a message to you and so forth, and it bolds, and there's the pop-up notification that comes up and so forth. Yep, there you go. So you see she's typing right then and there, and sometimes it seems like you're waiting a really long time for that message to come across, but awesome. Yep. And then there's the little notification that comes up in the application itself. So again, really cool. But what I was going to say is that what I encourage companies and my customers to think about is, if you happen to be using text messaging in any way, iMessage or the equivalent on Android, if you're using text messaging today as a sort of standard practice for communicating with members on your team, just think about pivoting over to using Teams chat for that exact same purpose, because the experience is practically identical, and you get to do more things inside of chat than you typically do just from messaging. And then for those folks in the IT and the IT security side of the house, you can also think of this as now it's under your own secured environment in that case, right? Whereas text messaging is completely out of your control. So getting your business users to really think about doing text-based messaging rather than using the texting capability on their mobile device, pivoting over to doing chat in Teams is really, that's the way to go. That's really how I encourage people to do that. So just stop, no texting for work, please. Thanks for that, Joy. But again, it's just straight up as just being able to type. Again, you can do so much here. You can @mention. If I do the @ in this case, or if let's say I'm starting a brand new chat, which I can do here in this in the mobile app simply by clicking in the upper right hand corner. There's this little icon here, looks the same as it is on the desktop app. I can start typing a suggestion into somebody, whoever that's going to be, essentially. Nestor is another person that I tend to, this demo user tends to use. It's just going to take you straight to them, right? But then from here, I can also mention someone else. I can do formatting. I can include a number of other things here in terms of being able to set priority. I can praise individuals and so forth. So lots of really great capabilities here on the chat side of the house. I'm going to skip Teams for just a second and pivot over to Calendar, actually. So going down to the Calendar app here. Here again, this is your calendar that's coming directly out of Outlook. So you can easily join meetings. You see I've got a couple of meetings, a test meeting I set up earlier. I can join that meeting, I can join this meeting and so forth, kind of scroll through my upcoming schedule that's coming up for the next day or so. I can also, by using this icon in the top right-hand corner here, very easily create a new event, schedule a new meeting here. So, I've got a new meeting that I need to schedule, add Joy, in this case, who's Lydia, and say, okay, I can choose to share it to a channel or not, set the time for it. It's going to be starting at 1 o'clock. It's going to be, for 45 minutes or something like that, which maybe that's kind of weird, but it's going to have a recurrence. We're going to do that every week on this time with no end date, and show this as busy or so forth on the calendar, and that's it. And then it's off to the races. And then you just created this new event here, which is easy as just clicking on this join button to be able to get started. Okay.
Hey, Richard, we got some questions. You want to take a moment?
Sure. Sounds great.
Okay. So first question, is there a way to keep a filter in the activity feed to stay on the desktop app like it does on the mobile version?
That's a really good question that I'm not sure the answer to. I'm not sure, Joy, if you've ever seen that before. And if I understand the question correctly, is a filter that can persist so that when you go back to the activity feed, to be able to just have it filtered like that automatically and not have to refilter it again. That's what it sounds like the question is asking. I don't know the answer to the question. I have to try it out and see. Do you know, Joy? Just curious.
I don't know, but I'm poking at it as we speak.
Okay, well maybe Joy will get a chance to kind of experiment around with that a little bit while we're going through the rest of the webinar, and then kind of weigh back in on that. That would be good.
And the next question is, what are you using to display the iPhone screen?
Oh, good question. We were just talking about that a minute ago. I actually use Air Server. So there's an application. There's a number of different ways that you can mirror your mobile device onto, in this case, I'm using a PC, but you can also do this to Macs as well. But I use Air Server, an app called Air Server, to be able to do this. And it's just essentially allowing me to mirror over Wi-Fi in this case. I know Joy uses another app. What app do you use for this as well, Joy?
Mine is called Power Mirror, APOWER Mirror. There's a free version, works Android, iOS, Apple TV. I do have the licensed version because I don't want the watermark for demos. But yeah, it works really well.
There's another way to do this that I can't really show right now very easily because we're in a Teams live event. But you can actually use in Teams what's called the mobile companion mode. And the mobile companion mode allows you to be able to join a Teams meeting from a mobile device, from Teams on your mobile device. And then inside of that, you can then share a number of things. At a bare minimum, you can share your entire screen. So that's really useful because, again, just like I'm doing now, you could, inside of a Teams meeting, join that meeting from your mobile device in Teams, and then be able to share your screen so that others can actually see what you're doing, just like I'm demonstrating now, from your mobile device. So that's also another really useful way that I've found to be able to do that. Only choosing to use Air Server here for this demonstration because we're in a Teams meeting, and some things would get a little bit wonky with trying to do the companion mode. Okay, other questions at the moment, Stacy? Great. Well, let's kind of keep moving along again. There's a whole bunch more things to see, but wanted to pivot back to Teams in this case. So again, teamwork makes the dream work. So the ability to be able to use Teams for these workspaces where you have a number of channels, and we all know that channels is where the work actually gets done. So conversations and sharing files and using other apps, etc. The mobile experience inside of Teams, and when you have a number of these other Microsoft 365 apps installed on your mobile device as well, is actually really impressive in my opinion. So I'm going to use an example here. So let me go back. So use an example here. This demo user, Megan, is a member of a number of teams, as you can see. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into this sales and marketing team, just into this general channel here. So now I'm in general. As you can see here, this is the ongoing discussion feed of posts. Again, you can do, reply to existing posts. Again, you've got all these kind of rich capabilities here where you can search and send GIFs and so forth, and attach files and mention others and so on and so forth. There's something really interesting down here if you just care to utilize this capability again on the mobile device, is this ability to record a little audio message as well if you wanted to. So right here, if I press and hold this, it's actually sending a recording or creating a recording, and I realized that I didn't hold it long enough. Okay, so this is actually now recording what I'm saying here, and then when I release this icon, what it does is, in fact, it creates this little recorded file here that I can post into the actual conversation feed at this point. And so now what's just really interesting is that aside from having text content or visual content as well, other members of the team can go and actually play this. You probably won't be able to hear it here. Okay, I don't know if you guys thought that was cool. I thought that was pretty cool, actually, to be able to do something as simple as that. Again, that's unique to the mobile device in that you get that ability to have this this little microphone icon here inside of a conversation to be able to post audio into the conversation feed. So again, so you've got conversations. You certainly have the files tab up here as well, as you might expect. You know, the ability to go in and access your files on the mobile device is really slick. You know, I've got a couple of different file types here. So, you know, a PDF, for example, is just going to simply render right here inside of the Teams app. You can scroll through this PDF here relatively easily. You could even use, you know, the ability to pivot your device over and then be able to see this more easily here, kind of widescreen. So I think that's really useful to do. So PDFs just render automatically right in here inside of Teams. If I have a PowerPoint presentation, like product launch in this case, it sort of goes into two modes. When you click on it by default, it just goes into this read-only view. So again, you know, not a very long presentation, but I can scroll through and just peruse through the presentation content relatively easily. But then this icon here, if I really needed to do some editing, or if I wanted it to do kind of more full featured PowerPoint, I can click on that icon. What it's going to do is, you can see it sort of does a handoff over to the Office app, mobile app on my device. Again, this is a singular mobile app now for Office that is inclusive of Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, and a bunch of other things it can do. But now I've got this app here, and I can actually go in and make edits to this PowerPoint presentation if I wanted to. I can also even present this PowerPoint presentation right here from my device. So I just, let me show you where I did that. There's an icon right here that allows me to go into presentation mode for that particular presentation. And when I do that now, I mean, this is actually running full-blown PowerPoint with all of the visualizations and the transitions, etc., that are available to you right here from my mobile device. So I think that's pretty slick. I know that I've had a number of executive leaders in organizations that I've demonstrated that before, that have said very quickly, how do I get that and how do I do that? Because they just think that that's really cool to be able to demonstrate. So PowerPoint is another file type. Excel, you know, again, this is going to initially just open it up in that view mode. So you can see here, here's the ability to view that. Again, if I pivoted the device over, rotated it, you can see that it's got a couple of different sheets here that I could, you know, kind of pinch zoom, etc. for. But maybe, again, maybe I really want to open it up in Excel, and that's what this icon here is for. It's going to do exactly what I just said a minute ago. It pivots over to the Office app, opens up that document here, so now I can actually interact with this document, this particular Excel file here, right inside the mobile device. So again, pretty slick that it does that. And then just to kind of round that out with some of the common application types, or file types rather, if I clicked on that Word document there at the bottom, again, it's going to render just sort of in the read-only view. If I click up here, again, to be able to edit, it's going to pivot over to the Office app, open up that Word document. Now, what's really cool about Word is that there's a couple of different views. There's sort of a mobile view. So in this case, this is the Word document that's optimized for viewing on a mobile. So it's basically just, you know, giving me the basic things that I need to be able to see it on a mobile device. But if I wanted to really see this full document in the view that it looks like when it's created on a desktop, I can click this option here, and then this is going to take it back into the normal view. In this case, I see that Lydia is also in the document. Thank you, Joy, in here co-authoring with Megan as well. That's pretty cool. But in this case here, you can see that you can now get a real sense of what the actual Word formatted document on the desktop looks like as well. Okay. So I think that's really slick. That's unique to the Word experience, is that you have the ability to toggle it back and forth from the mobile view to more of the desktop view, so that you can actually see it more easily in the on the app itself. So then kind of pivoting back to Teams again, closing this out. So again, posts and files, you know, those are for sure the two most common things, even when you're on desktop, at least getting started, that most teams tend to utilize. But there's really a whole lot more, and there's more. And so again, you see that there's a tab here that says more. And when you click on more, in this demo, I've got a whole bunch of stuff that I've kind of set up here. And just kind of wanted to show you how easy this is to be able to do on the mobile experience as well as on the desktop experience. So this best practices here is actually just a wiki page. So again, you know that out of the gate, when you create a brand new channel, you get 3 tabs by default. You get posts, files, and you get a wiki. I just renamed this wiki to best practices. Again, I'm in the sales and marketing channel. So maybe, you know, I need to be able to see like some sales best practices here. And we always know that always be closing is the best practices for sales, right? ABCs here. As Yoda would say, you know, closing always be, right? So make sure that you're always using the wiki if at all possible for something that's the need to know kind of information. It's really pretty rich. So we'd encourage you to look at wikis. I've got this product launch tab here. Again, that's just going to open up that PowerPoint presentation just like I did before. So again, that's useful to have kind of one-click access to that. Product launch event here is actually a planner board. And I've experimented around with this recently. I'm not sure if Microsoft is kind of tweaking this experience a little bit. It didn't quite work the way I expected it to work. So actually, I'm going to click on this little ... right here, and then choose the option here that says open in browser, which is misleading. Because actually what it's going to do is it's going to actually hand this off to the Planner mobile app. And I know we're right on the cusp of doing yet a Planner webinar coming up here pretty soon. I think next week, I believe. Is that right, Stacy?
Yes.
Awesome. So, you know, we'll get more into Planner. But for those of you that have seen Planner or are familiar with Planner, you know, here is really this full-blown Planner board for a product launch event right here, rendered in the mobile experience. It's actually really pretty slick and feature rich. You know, I have the ability to be able to change the view to other views here in this case, like who it's assigned to, etc. You know, what labels have been applied against it. Scroll through. I can click on any or kind of long press on any of these and drag these around and say this is uncategorized or what have you. And then up here as well, I can also easily get to some of the chart views. So again, this is really useful. This is the type of thing that you would do regularly in a stand-up, is say I want to be able to review what's the status and who's assigned to what, and do we need to reallocate. So there's lots of great things that you can do here in the Planner app on your mobile device. Again, this is just coming straight from a tab in Teams. So I'm going to go back here and just kind of go back to the Teams app. Some other things that I know Joy showcased last webinar around how SharePoint and Teams are in fact better together. You've got a couple of tabs here that I pinned, one for news specifically. So if I click on news, there's a news post that was created in the SharePoint site around the marketing lunch. And so as you can see here, there's not a whole lot of information here, but just, you know, a real simple news page. If I click on the ... up here again, a little misleading. Choose open in browser here at the very bottom of the screen. It's actually going to hand off to the SharePoint app in this case. So the SharePoint app gives some additional rich featured capabilities, such as, you know, I can comment and like on this news article in this case here. So maybe I just want to say, okay, I want to like that post. I can do that here from the SharePoint app. Going back to Teams again here and close this out. This second item here, which is also a SharePoint item, is going to a product list. So again, these are all tabs in the Teams desktop app. But if I click on that, it takes me to the, you know, the SharePoint view of this product list. And I could certainly scroll my way through this and kind of navigate my way through. But again, I tend to like the experience of the apps themselves. So if you click on this ... and it says open in browser, which we all know again means it's going to what? Hand it off to SharePoint. This brings up a really useful view of this list here in the SharePoint app. So again, now I've got this full app experience of this list that happens to be a list of products for the sales and marketing team. Maybe I want to do some things like I want to filter this view here a little bit. So I can come in here and say, okay, I want to filter this by a particular product line. I just want to see all the phones in this case here. I'm selecting these, going back and applying this filter, and now it's just filtered this list only to the phones as opposed to home entertainment or whatever the other items were. So again, that's really useful to be able to get from a tab over to the SharePoint app and kind of change that view into something that's a little more usable. There's a tab here for Power BI. So again, for the sellers on this team, you might want to be able to look at some feature-rich reports in Power BI. And so again, this hands off over to the Power BI app. It actually pivoted this automatically for me, kind of rotated it over. But you know, even though this might be a little bit of an eye chart, it's actually really pretty usable. And I know a lot of executives that use iPads in this case, or maybe Android tablets, being able to get to your Power BI report dashboards and be able to quickly kind of walk through here. Again, this is fully interactive. So as I'm clicking my way through here into some of these various components, you see that the data is changing and so forth. I have the ability to be able to do a lot of the similar things, such as I want to filter this. Maybe I just want to see the data for the first quarter here. So I can say January, February, and March in this case. And when I do that, it applies that filter. And so there you go. There's the rendering of this sales performance data only for that particular targeted quarter. I can also easily switch to different pages. So I've got, a pipeline report or sales quota information, other types of things that are here from Power BI. Really pretty slick that you could get to all of this on a mobile device. And again, this was something that had been created as a tab inside of that Teams view, so that you could then quickly pivot over to it again here in the Power BI app. So we're going to go back to Teams again and just keep showing. One of my favorite types of tabs that we talked about during the tabs webinar, where we focused on tabs, is the website tab. And so again, if you have a tab where you've just added in a website, so you might say, the consultant's website here is just going to crack open the web browser here. So shameless plug for the paid group. These might be the people that are really helping you get your way through the creation of your deployment plan and your training plan and custom solutions, etc. But again, you can have that as a one-click access from Teams and on the mobile device here. I'll cautiously show you that you can also bring in video-based content. This one here around marketing videos is actually stream videos. So when you click on this here, this is a tab again inside of this channel. It will render here, and you have to sort of take my word for it that if you click your way through the remainder here, it'll actually render right here the video content. And for some reason, it's not fully rendering all the thumbnails there, but I'll try it again. It'll render the video content, allow you to play that video, there it goes, and give you some options to actually, again, hand off to the Stream mobile app on your device where you can interact with that video some more. I noticed earlier today when preparing for this webinar that coincidentally in sharing my screen through Air server here, if I try to play this video, it crashes the app entirely. So I'm going to avoid that if at all possible. Same thing with YouTube here. In this case, maybe there's some YouTube video content. This happens to be from a previous webinar we did earlier this week. But if I click on that here right now, it's going to blow up. So I would prefer to not do that if I can help it in this case. But anyway, so, just the Whirlwind Tour wanted to showcase that it's just a really great experience on the mobile device. Again, it's very similar whether it's on an iPhone or an Android device. If you have these different apps that are installed and you've signed in to them all with your Office 365 account, your ability to be able to leverage them to get back and forth from these various tabs, as you can see, is fairly seamless to do in this case. I did want to show at least kind of one other thing on the mobile experience. Again, this is actually unique to iOS. It may be something similar, I would say, on Android, but I'm not as familiar. Is in the iOS paradigm, there's this notion of being able to do what they call a long press. And when you do a long press on an app in iOS, oftentimes there's some interesting things that show up in a menu. So what I'm going to do down here is I'm just going to long press on this Teams app, kind of hold it a little bit down. And when I do that, what you'll see is this little menu pops up that gives me some things to do. So I think this is useful because maybe I know that what I need to do immediately is just go and initiate a brand new chat. I can long press here, and then as you can see, there's a new chat option. If I select that, it just opens the Team app and takes me directly in to where I can begin a new chat. In this case, long press again, you'll see there's a few more. Maybe I'm searching for something, so I can select search. It's going to open up Teams, take me directly to that search interface. So I can say, marketing or something of that nature. I actually was trying to use my PC keyboard just then out of habit. Got to go back to my mobile device. But yeah, so you can get into search and look for messages and look for files that have the word marketing or even people that are related to marketing in this case. And then a couple of other things here. You can certainly go straight to the activity feed and so forth. But I thought that was really useful. I actually do that on a number of different apps as well, that kind of long press activity. Yes.
You can get that on Android as well. It's very similar. You just it's almost like a long press. if you will. And then right underneath it was new chat, search, activity, chat, and you have all those same shortcuts.
Awesome. Okay, great. Thanks for confirming that, Stacy. Appreciate it. But yeah, I find that on a number of different apps, whether it be messaging, Outlook, even in To-Do, that long press to kind of quickly allow me to go into the thing that I'm opening the app for anyway, find that to be really useful. So, okay, did we have any other questions maybe that came up or anything at this point, or?
There was just one other. It was more about on an iPhone when you wanted to increase the screen size. That usually, I think, on an iPhone, pinching is the normal way.
Yeah.
But is there another way? Is it double tapping? Are other ways on an iPhone to be able to increase the landscape?
Yeah, I think it depends on what it is that you're trying to sort of zoom in on. But, I'll give an example here. Like if I open up a PDF, yeah, as I was mentioning before, this is a little hard to see in this sort of portrait mode. But if I rotate my device, it puts it into landscape mode just automatically, which makes that a little bit easier on the eyes to begin with. And then if there's some really, really small things here, I certainly can pinch and zoom just like you would expect as you do on, photos and things like that. That's really useful. But the other thing I guess I would mention is, I am not gonna divulge my age directly in the webinar, but I've been doing this kind of stuff for a long time, and admittedly, I changed on my own iPhone the settings to make the font size one slight step bigger than they used to be when kind of I just got this phone new, and it just is easier on my eyesight. And I believe that font size transfers over into all of the applications that are running on my device. So that's another thing you can also consider doing, right? Is you can change the font size on the device itself at the system level, and it's going to increase that readability, across the board. So
I would say too something kind of related, but a little different in meetings. If someone is showing a PowerPoint presentation and you've had to join on mobile, which I have had to do many a time when I'm running between gates at the airport. Don't run and try to read a PowerPoint presentation at the same time, by the way, bad idea. But you can actually zoom in, of course, on the iPhone. It's that pinch zoom thing, but you can zoom in on what's being displayed. And I know for a fact PowerPoint, I can't swear to other content on your mobile device to make it easier to read what's on the screen while it's being presented by someone. And that is just, for my Boston friends, if you're on the phone, wicked cool.
Yeah.
It's wicked cool.
Yeah, I agree. There's certainly, a number of things when it comes to meetings, which we talked about in a previous webinar, that might be considered to be some good practices, especially if you're presenting in a meeting and being able to, whatever it is that you're rendering on the screen for others to see, being able to zoom in or, bring the size of it to be something that's more readable to others is certainly, that's a good practice, I would say. How about you, Joy? Anything else around the Teams mobile app? I mean, again, we're just kind of whirlwind touring on this here, but
yeah, it is a whirlwind. We could spend a day playing with all these toys. They're toys. Let's be real.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would say one of my favorite things to do from the mobile app that is so much better than it used to be is if I need to schedule a meeting.
Mm-hmm.
The Teams mobile app was actually, at least for me, I discovered it first, easier to create a meeting when I was on the go than the Outlook app was.
Sure.
Outlook app has caught up. It's sweet. The new, if you don't, and I'm an iPhone girl, right? I'll say it. I got my iPhone, but I use the Outlook app for my email. I don't even try to use the Apple Mail app. It's sweet, people. It is sweet.
I agree. Yeah, really useful app for a number of things on your device. So if you're one of those that responded in the poll around using the Outlook mobile app, thank you, because again, you're already benefiting from the capabilities of using the Outlook mail app as opposed to whatever the standard app would be in iOS or Android. So lots of really useful things there. So a couple other thoughts, I guess, that just sort of came to mind, for the purposes of this discussion is, in your activity feed, you do have the ability to at least do a left swipe on these items here. again, that's a pretty common paradigm on a mobile device. But when you left swipe, it gives you the ability to say, I want to mark that item unread. Or if it is read, it also obviously gives you the ability to flip it to read in this case here. So that's useful to be able to kind of go through your activity feed and say, I need to come back to this. I'm going to mark it unread. I need to, come back to that. I'm going to mark that one as unread. And it gives me the chance to be able to have some opportunity to go back to that when needed. And then I did just kind of briefly glanced over some of these other apps a minute ago. Again, one of the ones at the bottom here, if you use Teams for your calling, the experience is actually pretty slick. And I don't have it here in the demo. I'll switch over to my Pate tenant here to show you, because we actually do use, and you can see here from my calls, who I tend to frequently have conversations with. It's Miss Joy, but you've got the ability to use Teams for direct Teams to Teams calling. But if you're also using Teams as your phone system, which is something that you can do through Microsoft, and we at Pate do as well, you'll get this additional capability here. So upper right-hand corner of the app, when I click on that, you'll see, lo and behold, there's the Dialpad. Okay, so that's the experience that you get when you use Teams as your phone system. Is you get the ability to just open the app, go straight to Dialpad, type in, I live in Austin, so 512 area code, but there's, I'm just dialing a number and then be able to just make a call. Similarly, when you receive a call from a landline or outside the company, you're also going to be able to answer that directly there from your mobile device, just like any other normal phone call that you would get, and it's going to answer it in Teams, which is also really useful in that case. So phone is something you can get to as well. And then I believe I mentioned, you can get to files. So in this case here, you've got files that are not only stored in Teams, but you've got files that you can also get to in your OneDrive in this case. So again, logged in as this demo user, but basically it's just showing me a view of all of the OneDrive files that are stored for this person, Megan. So I have the ability to get access to those files here directly in the OneDrive app. I mentioned the camera. So, if you have a need for, so I'm going to rotate this around so I can actually see me here. So here I am again, demoing. But if you have the need to be able to, there we go. So if you have the need to be able to leverage some of the distinct capabilities of a mobile device, that is to say, that it's got a camera built right in, you can go into the camera and then be able to take a picture. I think the use case that we tend to see from customers that have field workers, folks that are out in the field, maybe they're, cable installers or who knows where they're working, and they have a need to be able to at times take a photograph of something that they're doing on a job site, and then quickly be able to share that with others in their team to be able to get some, additional dialogue going on about it or what have you. The ability again to be just go into here, click camera, take a picture of something, and then immediately be able to share that amongst the team is a really, really straightforward use case for Teams. I also, I mentioned this organization one too. I think that's really useful, not only in mobile, but on the desktop app, but the ability to go in here and easily say, okay, well, Megan reports to this director, Miriam, who ultimately reports to the president of the company, and then just sort of, click and touch rather and navigate my way through here. I can see now that these are all of Miriam's direct reports. Who I'm looking for is, Lydia, who is actually Joy in this case, but, I can come in here and say, looking for Lydia Holloway. Okay, there you go. So there's her card. And then if I wanted to, I could click here and then actually see where does she sit in the organization. Oh, okay. Lydia reports to Lee, the director Lee, right? So I can go back in and see who else is on Lydia's team in this case here. But the organization view is really pretty feature rich as far as that goes inside the mobile app. And then lastly, I would show that, if you are taking advantage of saved items, the ability to say, I want to save a post inside of Teams, you can also get to that directly here from the mobile app. So in this case, I've got some that I basically think of them as flagging them, if you will, in email. So I'm saving an item and I can quickly be able to get back and forth from the things that I have saved. So again, that's going back to this post here from Pradeep, or this post here from Joanna, or this post from Megan. And this is crossing over a number of different teams Doesn't matter where they are, what channels they're in. The fact that I've saved them and then have the ability again from the swipe to go in and choose saved to get back and forth through them, real productivity enhancer as far as I'm concerned. So useful as well, in my opinion. Okay, well, I know we're getting kind of close to the end here. We'll go ahead and just for the sake of closing and rounding things out, switch back to the presentation. Want to thank you so much for joining. We've got our contact information here, so you can get in touch with us a number of different ways. Certainly feel free to reach out to us on Twitter. Here's our email addresses. Those QR codes there, if you again have your mobile device handy and want to scan those QR codes, will take you to our LinkedIn profiles. Please, please, please do connect with us because we enjoy getting a chance to connect with anyone out there who's interested in talking about things Teams or Microsoft 365 related. And we're also happy to help out if we can as well too. Joy, anything else to add here on the tail end?
No, I think I am good. And again, this was just a little less than an hour, but I think that shows you just all of the amazing capabilities that have been built into this mobile productivity suite. And there's new goodness rolling out all the time. So if you haven't downloaded them, I hope you go do that. Just see what's available. You literally can have your entire intranet in your pocket where you are as much as you need it. Just don't let it make you become a workaholic.
Yes.
Exactly.
Because it does make it easy to be a workaholic.
And so again, for those of you that joined us today, thank you. Please
Yes,
do look for us again starting next week on Tuesday, May the 5th. We're going to start, I think it's season 2, basically, of our webinar series at this point now. And if I recall correctly, I think we're going to pivot to once a week now. Is that right, Stacey?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. We're going to
Yeah.
do Tuesdays, and the next one up is on Planner. So stay tuned for how to access registering for that session. And I'll make that available in a follow-up with today's recording.
Perfect. We're going to
Fantastic.
talk about how to work your plan your work. It's going to be awesome.
That's right. That's right. So please do register and join us next Tuesday as well. Okay. Well, thanks, everybody. Hope you had a great time, as much fun as we did today. Thanks, and have a great day.
You too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.